talking to people saying, well, power is the problem. We must fight this concentration of power because it will corrupt people. And as long as that exists, we'll never have freedom. And I was right up to that point. But then, like everybody else in the movement, I went too far. And I said, therefore, let us oppose all power. We ourselves must reject power. Otherwise, we will become just like they are. It's kind of a logical thought. And so, all of us during this period of time were out there in the trenches, trying to awaken people about the problem. We were saying that power must be opposed, and we ourselves must reject it. One day, about 2001 or 2002, thereabouts, I woke up in the morning. Literally, I can remember it. I sat up right. Apparently, I'd been thinking about it, during that half-sleep, half-waking state that you go through as you're going to sleep and sometimes waking up. So I must have been thinking about this in that state. I remember sitting up in bed with this concept in my mind: we must reject power ourselves. And I remember thinking, I might have even said out loud, we lose. It became clear to me. No power of history has ever been overthrown except by equal or greater power. And as long as we reject holding power ourselves, we do not stand a chance of overcoming the tyranny that we now face. Which is why, one of the reasons in my view, that we have been losing. We have allowed power to accumulate in the hands of our enemies, and we ourselves have never thought that it was proper for us to acquire power because power corrupts. And therefore, we lose. One of the greatest lessons of history is that power is essential if you're going to bring about change. It's also true that power is dangerous. But a lot of things are dangerous that you must have. Guns are dangerous. Guns kill people. There are accidents with firearms. Guns are very, very dangerous. The only thing more dangerous is not having them. That's right. Political power is dangerous. Very dangerous. It can corrupt people. The only thing more dangerous is not having it, because then you're a slave. From that time forward, I began to concentrate on, okay, if we must have power, number one, how do we get it? Number two, what do we do with it? And number three, how do we prevent it from corrupting ourselves and those who follow? That has been one of the primary tasks of the organization I created, called Freedom Force International, is to answer those three questions. I'd like to touch on just a little bit of that tonight. It's much too big a topic, and we don't have enough time for it, but I want to give you just a feeling of where I have been, and invite you, if you're interested in this topic, and I certainly hope you all are, to come to our website, which is freedomforceinternational.org. By now you probably have had a brochure passed out which has our URL on it. If not, it will be passed out, or you can get it at the table as you leave. And you'll find a lot of information there having to do with this question of how do we get power, what do we do with it, and how do we prevent corrupting ourselves and those who follow. But it just stands to reason that if we want to bring about change in Washington or at the state legislative level, we have to replace the nameplates on those doors. We've got to send new representatives into Washington, into the state capitol, to represent the freedom viewpoint. That means, by implication, we are striving for power, because we're recognizing the fact that the people who hold the power now are the enemy. And so we must send new people in who represent our point of view, so that our point of view, our ideology, can have the same power. The motto of Freedom Force is impotentes defendere libertatem non possunt, which is Latin, of course, and it means Those without power cannot defend freedom. I want you to think about that. We have kind of a more popular slogan which says pretty much the same thing, which is, don't fight City Hall, become City Hall. This has been our problem. For years, we've been complaining. We don't like this, we don't like that. We write letters to the guys that are doing it to us. We write letters to our congressman, the very enemy, and we say, oh, won't you please be good guys? Won't you please follow the Constitution? Don't you fear me? I'm a voter. They laugh. They have the power. They listen to people who write letters, sure, but they listen a lot more to people who write checks. That's the reality of the world that we live in. We have been powerless. We're standing outside the halls of power, looking in through the glass windows and saying, oh, won't you please listen to us? We're going to send you a petition. Please do what's right. They couldn't care less. It's time for us to be in the halls of power. It's time for us to be making the rules and regulations. And that's one of the things that's been missing, I believe, in the freedom movement, is that we've rejected this concept, this necessity of coming to power. Well, if we're going to come to power, and there are ways of doing it, the most important way is to recapture control of the power centers of society. I learned this by reading the literature of our enemies. Enemies on the right, enemies on the left, whether it's Lenin or whether it's Hitler, they all come up with the same concept, which is, if you're going to conquer a country from within, and they're experts at that, you've got to take over what they call the power centers of society. Those are the groups, the organizations that people belong to. They have leadership. They follow their leaders. And these organizations, as a sum total of the whole society, determine the policy of the nation. I'm talking about political parties, media centers, church organizations, labor unions, all of the great organizations that represent masses of people. Our enemies call those the power centers of society, and they've written textbooks on how to capture control of them. They understand that people are like cattle. They understand the lead cow concept. And long ago they said, we will be the lead cow. The rest of the cattle will follow us. We don't have to control all the population one on one on one on one. All we have to do is control the power centers of society. The dozen or so, maybe 20 or 30 power centers of society. Capture them at the top, and the nation will follow. And if you observe what's happening in the United States and most of the countries of the world, you will see that is how it's done. The masses all belong to these organizations. Let's just take the political parties, for example. They're clear what they want. The people want this. They call for that. They have resolutions. They have political planks. Everybody agrees on the plank. And then the heads of the parties go in and do exactly what they wish. There's no relationship at all with what the rank and file's been calling for. That's just a game. How do these people get to be to the top of the party? That's the question nobody asks. How do these leaders get there? How do they maintain their control? And if you look at the tops of all of the major power centers of society today, they're dominated by corrupt collectivists. They've been pushing for the global New World Order based on the model of collectivism for decades. Meanwhile, the rank and file of these organizations know nothing of that. In fact, they're opposed to it. They don't even know that's what their leaders are pushing for. That's why they're sold out so easily. So, the way to recover our nation is to reverse the process by which we lost it. We have to go back into those power centers ourselves, one by one, and recapture control of them. Not with guns or bayonets in the street, not with barricades in the street, but through political and organizational